Good morning, everybody. Um, I'm here. I have two new guests here this week. Deputy Chief Bill Wright from. Uh, I'm here. I have two new guests here this week. Deputy Chief. How do I turn that down? Deputy Chief from Southwest Greensburg, Bill Wright, and Lieutenant Zach Lavelle from Harrison City. A couple things we're going to talk about today. I want to touch on a couple things from last time that we discussed. There were a couple comments, and we were doing things new. I wasn't able to read the comments while we were sitting here, and there were a couple good points on there. And then also one of the things that these two guests are here specifically for is they've both had to call a Mayday in a fire, real life Mayday, real life fire. And we don't get that too often. And I want maybe people to understand better why they did it, at what point they got to do it. And maybe we'll talk about if they should have done it maybe a little bit earlier or, something like that. So we all understand in the fire service as a whole, and even the public for that matter, some of the things that happen inside of burning structure that we get to that point and the steps that are taken outside of that fire to get these guys out when they get in trouble. And I'm sure there's cases where people have maybe should have called a Mayday and got themselves out, or even when something bad happened, somewhere outside of this area or anywhere where maybe they waited too long and we could have got them out if, they would have called for help. So the first couple of things, we talked about recruiting new people and the struggles that the fire department's having. And I'm sure Harrison City is no different than anybody else. And Southwest Greensburg, are doing the same things. But we've talked about we need people. And we also, one of the things I noticed there were comments on there. Bob Coletta was one of them. And, he said we're our own worst enemy. Well, that couldn't be further. That is the absolute 100% truth. There is no doubt we are our own worst enemy. Each department's probably guilty of it. Whether we don't want to work with a neighbor for some reason or do those type of things, we probably have to open up our eyes to working better with the neighbors that we have and helping them get better. They can help us get better, however that works. And frankly, the duplication of resources across these departments here just in our area, and I think Bob commented on it, that there's a fire department every mile or two. And that's correct. And at some point, we're going to have to somehow get that all together into one ball. And I've been, whether we were on a standby somewhere or wherever, where we've driven 12 miles to a call. Well, here, that's unheard. I mean, most of our alarms are down the block or, just a mile at best away. So that was different when we would go to those areas and do that stuff. And we could probably, if we would just get our own egos out of the way, frankly, we could work together. So that's one thing. And Jimmy Bold was on, and he had said about, our kingdom. Yeah, none of us want to give up our kingdom. I mean, that's 100% true. And, we all hope that our department is the best. Well, it's the best for us, but are we all the best? No. And I think if we just work together and try to keep some of the little things out of it, we're going to be better off. So with that said, we'll talk a little bit about this Mayday thing. And then maybe we can talk about some of that other stuff. But Bill, we'll start with yours. You can correct me on some of the stuff. It was a single story. It was 1.5 story, right? You had a little loft up there.
Right. There was a part of the house that had a second story.
Okay. So it was come in as a report of house fire. you know, your ladder truck went up a very narrow driveway. I still, is beyond me. Billy was driving, right?
Right.
Beyond me how you got that ladder truck up that driveway, or back out for that matter. But very narrow driveway. And it was you and Seth entered there first.
Right. Seth Parsley, myself, and Bam, Tim Allen.
Okay, so it was a newer. Seth's a newer fireman.
That was Seth's first fire.
Okay, so so you guys were out there first, and we're going to get the fire. Just kind of maybe take us through, you know, when you entered the house, and then where do you think things went wrong, and when you decided it was time.
I can walk you through it. You shut me up when you want me to stop. But,
Go ahead, tell us.
as we were arriving, Chief 29 advised that we had fire through the roof, which just the way that house sat, and he had a hard time finding it originally too. You couldn't see it until you were right there, and we were coming up almost to the driveway and could see it. Went up, and we'll call this, I've been referring to side A as the driveway side where we were. That actually wasn't the front of the house, but that was considered side A that night. We come up on side A, and the fire that we could see was coming from the CB corner. It was good fire. As we prepared to enter, and I'm going to give you some of the issues that were caused as we went. I just hollered out, are we on, I think it was tax 6, I asked. Because I'll be honest with you, you guys may remember what we were, was it dispatched as a house fire? I don't know why we were tax 6, or I even thought we were tax 6. But I was told yes, and that was the wrong tack. So that was the first problem. I was on the wrong tack. So when we made entry, I approached the front door thinking I was going to force it, opened the screen door, and we just got hit with black, hot smoke. So we had found later that thing was at least burning for 20 minutes. So we made entry. We knew we were heading for the CD corner, had our charged hose line, didn't follow walls. We were heading to the CD corner.
Now, when you went in that first room you went in there, that was like a laundry room or something?
Yes.
And when it went in the door right and then left? How the hallway went?
You went straight in the door, past the entry to the garage, and then you went straight into a wall and sort of had to go to the left a little bit to get around that wall. So, and then that puts you in the hallway area into all these other rooms. So we advanced, again, not following any walls, which caused a problem. I'm not saying that was wrong. We had a hose line. We were going to get out. No problem. But got into an area where I could actually see a glow. Seth couldn't. Just a little bit of difference between him and I. Bam had asked me, it was so hot, he said, "You want me to open some windows?" I thought he had windows to open. He was planning on leaving to get windows open. So I'm thinking I still have 3 people in there, myself and 2 others. Bam had left. So that was a communication error between him and I. I misunderstood what he was planning. So that was another issue. So I had Seth, I told him, I said, hit that ceiling, just keep penciling that ceiling to try to keep this cool for us, which wasn't working. And eventually I said, all right, back out. He asked me if he should take the hose line. I said, let the hose line lay, but don't let go of it. Follow it. I hollered for Bam, didn't get an answer, so now I'm heading to last place I knew Bam was, and Seth had started out. Well, when Seth turned to start out, the line hooked something, which I didn't know, and he lost it. So it got to the point that it just I couldn't take it anymore. The heat. I started out and found Seth, and I could tell he wasn't following the hose line, and he said he lost it. So I tried to look for it a little bit, but I'm feeling for a charged line, and here we had ran out of water, which I didn't know. So now it's a flat line instead of a charged line. So surely right around there is where I realized that we were lost. We were having a hard time getting our way out. The timing, Chief 29, right around then, put an evac out. And I went to, that's where I put the Maday in. I put the Maday in, just said first division, and that we were lost. As we need somebody just to give us guidance to the door. And I went, after I put the Mayday out, I went to hit my pass, and it wouldn't go off. So I had Seth trip his pass delays. And eventually I got back into the kitchen that we had bypassed, and that's where we really got confused, because now we're in a room that I didn't go past any of this stuff. I didn't do any of this, and I have no idea where I'm at. But Bam came back in, and Bill crawled in a little bit, and they were yelling and heading our way. And Seth had got out first, and then they grabbed me. But as far as, did we put the Mayday out too soon? No. Did we put it out too late? I don't think. As soon as I realized we were in trouble and couldn't get out, I put the Mayday. Because we weren't trapped. We didn't need a lot of help, but we needed help. We needed somebody to try to give us an idea of where the front door was.
Now, another small issue there was the radios.
Yeah.
And this is how, I know this happened before, but the radios were putting off the same identifier. You had two radios that were putting off the same identifier at that fire.
I don't know about the same identifier, but my radio was not putting off my identifier.
Okay. So, and yours frankly should have probably said Deputy 24.
Right.
When
And
it
it
come
was
up.
saying, I think it was saying 24.5.
And someone else was
Just-
getting a hydrant, and
Just-
he was talking on the radio, and he said, I remember he said,
Right.
it's on the audio, he said, I didn't call Mayday.
Right.
But you did.
Right.
So,
So you're right. It was Justin Shell's identifier on my radio, and that caused an issue with 911 trying to tell them.
right.
who was
And
calling
that's,
Mayday.
I mean, it happens. I mean, it's not.
When I called the Mayday, my lapel mic wasn't working. There was just so many small issues that led to this whole thing that, I mean, it could have been, it really could have changed.
Now, your mic wasn't working because of the heat, you think?
I never had a problem with it before.
So, and then, okay, so the ladder truck's in the drive. So one of the things is the ladder truck's in the driveway, and it only has 300 gallon of water.
Right.
Right. And then the engine 8 come up, they had 500 gallon.
Right.
And then, you know, and on that long driveway, we could look back and say, hey, we could have dropped a 5-inch at the bottom of the driveway. But when the hell we ever do that?
Right.
Never.
Right.
Never.
And you know what? I would have hated, as us being the first truck up there, to drop a 5-inch on that driveway and tie that driveway up that you only have one piece of.
No, I don't disagree there. I'm just saying, you know, maybe engine 8 could have dropped it, or you know, or whatever. But and then there's other things. And frankly, the other day we had this fire up here on the hill. I wish I should have dropped my 3-inch at the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
And after even knowing that and been, you know, being closer to that, I didn't do it. I didn't tell my truck to do it. They were more worried about they couldn't fit in the driveway, getting it in there at that point, than I was thinking drop the hose there at the road and, you know, continue on down that driveway. And I didn't know how far back the fire was either. But that's, I guess, those are things we, you know,
Right.
we come back to the station and talk about after. But you had some burns on you.
Yeah.
nothing life threatening at that point.
No.
And Seth had a couple minor burns on him, but everybody got out.
Seth had some third-degree burns to his ears and the top of his head. Mine on my back and my hands.
Now that could have been a way worse situation there.
Yeah.
I mean, that fire was going pretty good.
As soon as they got us out, it lit up. So I mean, we were lucky.
So you don't think you think probably it all just happened too fast and it wasn't too long or too short just to call, hey, we need help?
Yeah, no, I don't feel that I waited too long. I definitely don't feel I waited too long.
And there wasn't even written in place at that point because it was too early.
That's sort of what I was gonna just touch on a little bit. You know, I'm a great believer in writ. We really got to think about how we do this because that was so early into that fire. Writ wasn't even close to being in place. You know, there's different ideas on this. As soon as you have a team in, you get a backup team that is serving as writ until writ gets into place. You know, an on deck team, whatever. But this stuff happens too fast to rely on writ the way we rely on writ in this area.
Right, and I know I've had this other conversation with other people too, and just around, and I've heard other people talk about it. Yeah, when our writ companies are coming from a further distance out than our normal alarm, and maybe and I don't know. And this is something we should probably all sit down and discuss how we're going to do it, but maybe we should, second due engine gets out, third due, whatever. You set 2-3 guys out, and manpower's an issue always too, depending on time of day of the fire and whatnot. But maybe our, third engine in or something, you just grab 2 guys off there and say, hey, you right here until our writ gets in place in case something goes down. Because and a lot of times, depending on how quick the writ company is, and sometimes they're short on manpower, but how quick they get there, we probably should have the fire out or our people out by the time sometimes they get there.
Mm-hmm.
Either it's developed on us way too fast, or the fires, we got it under control and they're just kind of there in case we have a collapse or something else happens. So I do agree with you that our lighting is much better today. Jimmy Bolt said we had to put that light up there because it was very dark last time.
That's because you put your hat on.
Yeah, I don't have to glare off my forehead, but you're right, and I'm glad we went to that because I was sitting here thinking about that. We have to do better at getting writ in place faster than we do, because that was in the early stage of that fire. Now, of course, you might have an engine there for 3, 4, 5 minutes by itself. Sometimes,
right?
And that's usually when I don't know what the statistics are. When something goes wrong, going in first, going to find the fire or find somebody or whatever, that's when something where you're going to get trapped by fire.
Exactly.
So
yeah. Yeah. And the on deck thing, you're not committing that company to writs. I mean, people may kick and scream if you say, hey, you handle writ, but they're going to be the next crew in as soon as writ gets there. And they need to understand that. But that's something I really think that we need to do in our area is start putting that next crew, you just stay here till writ gets here.
And even if they're doing a couple things out front until they hear the call, because it doesn't matter, and it's in everybody's mind, any guys that are interior firefighters or whatever, if writ's not there and someone yells, we got a guy down, now 12 people want to go running to get them out.
Mm-hmm.
And that could become a bigger problem
right
on the back end of that, because now not only do you have 2 guys that are in trouble or 3 guys in trouble, now you have all these guys want to go get them because, hey, or whether we dislike each other or our brothers are in there or sisters and we got to go get them. So that could create a whole another matter. And that's one of those things where, whether we love our neighbor or dislike our neighbor, we should sit at a table, with these commanding officers and decide how are we going to do this and what's going to work best for us if something happens that we can get our people out. And that's probably one of the most important things, you know. So the next one is Zach. Yours is more recent. Bill F. fire was a couple of years ago now, but yours was more recent. And I don't know much about it other than listening to the pieces that I heard on the radio. You had an attic fire.
Yeah, so we were dispatched for a 2-story brick structure. Fire actually started on the outside of the house, but made its way up into the attic space, which was above the garage. Our assistant chief was on scene pretty quickly, had fire through the roof. I came in on the truck. There was a crew of 5 of us. We pulled in. You could see the fire right where it was at. All the smokers were really contained to that side of the house. So, you know, it looked like it was an easy fire. We knew where we were going. You know, it looked contained there. So me and my partner, we get off, we take a hose line, some hand tools in. The homeowner was at the front door, and he said, you go up to the top of the steps, make a left. Right next to the window, there's a door to get into the attic. So we make our way up the stairs. Great visibility until we hit the bedroom. Get in the bedroom, find the window, can't find the door to the attic. At this point, you know, it's obviously, you know, progressing. The heat and the smoke's getting a little worse, but we just could not find that attic. And, you know, we went down a short hallway into the bedroom, and I'm thinking, okay, this is the bedroom, you know, the attic has to be right here. So I called the chief. I said, hey, can you get some more information? Like, is this a hatch in the ceiling? Is it a door? You know, visibility at this point just went to basically nothing. And we worked our way around the room, and what we actually found was you had to go into one bedroom to get to the other. And the attic access was in the second bedroom. So we make it there. You know, at this point, like I said, visibility's garbage. The heat was picking up. And we only had a little bit of fire shown in that room. So we took care of the fire, and I started trying to force the door to the attic, and it ended up being a steel fire door. Not what I was expecting, but it gave me some pushback. We couldn't get it open. And I guess that was really the first indication was, you know, even a steel door, I should be able to get this door open. And it just wouldn't budge. So I started working my way in from the wall, trying to get into the attic space. And, you know, the chief called for a report. He said, you know, the smoke's not looking good out here. My partner, who, you know, is a good fireman, we fight a lot of fire together. He said, I don't like this, you know, conditions are getting worse. And I said, yeah, let's go ahead and back out. So he was out of the room, what we'll call the fire room first. I was working my way back across. He wasn't as far in as what I was. And the roof above the attic, the garage, it ended up just collapsing in with no notice. When it did that, it pressurized that room. It blew that attic door open, and it blew me across the room, and I went face first into the wall. And the impact actually knocked my mask off. So I quickly put that back on. You know, at this point, you're kind of disoriented. You know, I'm calling for Ty. He's not answering me. So, you know, my first reaction is, okay, he's somewhere in here. I got to find him too. Ended up that the impact did crack my face piece, but it was still intact enough that I had fresh air. So, you know, after a couple minutes of looking for him, couldn't find him. You know, at this point, I had fire all around me, no nozzle. I said, I got to get out of here. So I started following the hose line back. And I guess when it was charged or whenever the additional crews were flaking in, it actually, you know, it actually fell into a couple different rooms. So as I'm coming back out through this bedroom that, you know, like in Bill's case, you knew how you went in. I started going into rooms that I knew I didn't come in that way. You know, still don't know where Ty was. I said, I'll just follow the hose. I'll, you know, work your way back out like we're taught. And I actually went through 3 rooms that I didn't enter through. And at that point, the fire was growing with no nozzle. I said, you know, called command. I said, look, I'm stuck up here. You know, we had partial collapse at that point. So the hose itself wasn't really visible. I was finding it here and there. But I said, I need some help. And they sent the rig crew in, more like Bill's story. It was just more or less me finding my way out. It wasn't so much that I was injured. It wasn't that I was, physically trapped under something. I was just stuck and in rooms that, like I said, I wasn't in, and just being disoriented and knowing I had a face piece malfunction was starting to set in on me. So I called for help. The RIT crew came in, and I think it was honestly within probably a minute and a half that I was back out at the front door. So it all worked out. The next day we went back up. The homeowner actually let us in so that we could get the layout of the house and kind of come up with an idea of what happened. And the layout was actually really a death trap looking at it now. Like I said, going into these rooms that they all connected, there was a bathroom that ran the whole length of the second floor, and you could get into it 3 different ways. So I made my way into that bathroom, and I was coming out another door here and there. And at that point, I had lost the hose. So it was really just guessing for a way out. No windows on the back side of the second floor, so I wasn't able to, bail out a window or anything. But, looking back on it, did I wait too long? Did I call too early? I'd say I probably waited a little bit too long because I was actually digging myself farther away from the way out by trying to get out myself. So,
Okay, so I guess just a message for other firefighters out there to get into situations. If you think you waited maybe a little bit too long, were there thoughts present about, and we talked about this on the phone.
Yeah.
Were there thoughts present about, I gotta watch what I say because it's Facebook, we get whacked real quick. People messing with you, we call it breaking balls. Because you called too early, he wasn't even in trouble up there and he called and did that, or those things. Were you thinking about those things or just not getting out?
I wasn't really too worried about that. It was just, I wasn't hurt. A misconception is, the Mayday is, oh, you're buried under something or you're injured, So me waiting to call a little bit was more, I'm still moving around. I'm still there. I might find my way out, but looking back, I should have probably called sooner.
So, and you didn't, and not that you didn't do anything wrong. So don't think I'm going there, but you didn't call it like a traditional Mayday.
No, I
You just said I need help.
I said, Chief, I need some help. I'm stuck up here.
So, and that can be, either way, because, this is something separate, but a vehicle accident, for example. I had one down here and I said, hey, we have a patient that's confined to the car, but she's not trapped. We got to get her out, but, we don't have to remove the whole car around her to get her out. But it's technically entrapment.
Yes.
So in your situation, you needed help, but technically it's a Mayday.
Yeah, and that, the after plan, the discussions was, it should have been a clear Mayday. Because even when I said I needed help, my chief team was like, you what? And I had to say it again. I said, look, I'm stuck. I need some help. So,
right.
Yeah, for anyone that, would ever get in that situation, just make it a clear Mayday.
But
helps everyone.
On the other spectrum of that, when you call Mayday over the radio, we're standing out there going, oh, they're trapped. Not just we're disoriented or we're lost in a hallway somewhere. So it probably goes both ways. If you're thinking, well, is this a Mayday or can you just send someone in here to guide me out?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just can you find someone to come get me and we'll get out of here. So. And I don't know, I agree or disagree with it. You're right, though. So the word is Mayday. And Bill, you're a state fire instructor. So what are your thoughts on it's just a Mayday, no matter what?
Well, they teach you when you give a Mayday, you give your location, who you are, and what your issue is.
Right.
The problem is when you're burning so bad, are you thinking straight? You know, I gave my Mayday. I did give the location, and said we're lost. We need help out. But it was getting so bad, the heat, and my pass wasn't working. I couldn't get anybody on the radio. I'm starting to think, am I not thinking straight, that I'm not doing this stuff right? You know, later found out that they weren't working.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to a certain point in time when I couldn't get out, and I was by myself, didn't have Seth anymore. He was gone. That I almost gave up. So you're not thinking straight. I thought at one point in time about just stopping and laying there and hoping somebody found me. And I thought that, and that's, you know, but it just, that the heat starts working on you. And when if you wait to give the Mayday because you're afraid somebody's gonna bust your chops.
Chops, that's a better word.
It happens too quick. So when you know you're in trouble, you need to give that Mayday as soon as you know you're in trouble. And when you come out and they bust your chops, at least you're there for them to bust your chops.
And that's one of the things that I think I said with him, and we were talking about with the guys here. Better to have your chops busted than be, hauled out another way.
Yep.
So, and unfortunately, sometimes we worry about that stuff. Who's going to bust me about this or that or the other thing, and I guess you just, you got to let that go. And so I guess if anybody, it doesn't matter, young crew, experienced crew, and whatever. If you're in trouble, call. We're going to come get you. At least we're going to make one hell of an attempt to come and get you anyhow, and that's why we have that stuff in place outside. And the same thing, I just wanted to thought about it. The public, everybody's standing around and watching a fire, whether it's in South Greensburg or Greensburg, Southwest Harrison City, wherever. The public's on the sidewalk or on their front porch watching, this go on. And we have people standing there with air packs on over here with a bunch of equipment with them sitting there. And you have guys waiting over here, doing this. And they might think, well, why do they have all these people just standing around? Well, there's reasons for that. One, a fire in a room, you can only put so many people in there. Because and people have to think about this and even the firefighters have to think about this as your commanding officers out there. You have to worry about, you got to know who's in there. Because when something goes bad, we have to go get, do I have 5 people or do I just have guys that just showed up and went in the back door and I got 3 people on the first floor, 5 people? No, I only seen these 4 people go in that front door. And now, and I'll use this house fire up here on Elm Street as an example. I don't know if it was discussed. It was done on purpose or how it went. But that was my first fire since I've been chief. And when I got there, Jared had already had things going. I mean, he already had the first, our engine was in place. Your truck was to come up, up the street, and we left room in front for you there. And someone else grabbed the water supply from the hydrant up on the corner. So at that point, we were set. And when I got there, I pulled the car up on the sidewalk. I was getting dressed, and I said to Jared, "Do you have this?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm good." And I said, "Okay, see ya." And he didn't like that. He's like, he figured I'd get there and just say, "Hey, go ahead." And I'm going. So we were up in there, and I think I know Billy was up there with it. We probably had 6 or 7 guys on that second floor. A fire in the attic. And one thing I remember when we were in there, and it was me and you that were talking on the radio. You had went around to the side of the building. You went around the B side, and you could see the C side and all that. And you were communicating with us what you saw back there. That doesn't happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the chief or assistant or whoever's in charge is just standing out front looking at the building as a whole. Now I got a guy over here saying, "Hey, you got smoke coming out of this corner over here." And frankly, that helped us a ton. You know, we were aware, but I know the point is we had guys standing outside, and I come out, when I came out, someone made the comment to me that, oh, we come over here and can't fight no fire. Well, we have plenty of people in there. Now you're out there when we get tired,
Right.
you know, and then there's other work to do, but we couldn't have took any more people on that second floor. And not to mention, me, Bam, and Billy were up there, and we probably take up a room just ourselves, the three of us. You know what I mean? So, and we were working to the point where, you know, now it was time for me to come out and start, you know, getting some of that out of there. So it's not always, I know everybody wants to, you know, a lot of guys want to go in, or girls that want to go in and fight the fire, but we have to be more careful of that, because when we get in these situations with these Maydays, then we don't know who's all in there.
Right.
And that becomes a whole nother matter. So now we have to put other people in danger, looking for people that either shouldn't be in there. And believe me, you've been guilty of it. Just going in, walking in the door somewhere just to go in there, you probably, and you know, we all have. But that's another thing we have to do better at, is controlling who's going in these places.
And I mean, we're all trained to do this. We're all trained to do accountability, to have somebody there to take accountability. We just don't do it.
We don't.
And that you need to do it. The Farmington fire, had that not been so early, we probably wouldn't have got lost, because we could have just went from person to person to person to person to get out.
Right, to get out the door.
But it was so early that there was only 3 of us in there, and I think 2 behind, and that was it. So I mean, it would have changed 5 minutes later. There had been 20 people in there, because that quick, nobody was taking accountability at the door.
Yeah, and even in my case, like the crew for my truck and then the first due engine, we only had 4 or 5 guys up in there, and you know, same thing. Was there accountability? We could tell at that point, because it was still early on, how many guys. But you know, the further these incidents go on, you get more and more guys, and you know, someone just wants to pop their head in to see what's going on. You know, like you said, it creates a problem for us. And the one thing that we did, just to touch on, you guys talked about grit, was when I gave my Mayday, it was every person on that fire ground running to the front door. And Gene did a good job of keeping everyone out except for the RIT team. That way you don't get into a bigger situation than, you know, what we already had. So just something to keep in mind is, you know, yeah, we hear that Mayday, we all want to go help, but, you know, we may be doing more harm than good at that point.
Right, and while we have the writ on our readouts for that reason, you're right. When someone calls Mayday, everybody wants to go run and get them. You know what I mean? It's just the nature of the whole thing. And in your case, you only had a couple people in the house at that point too.
Yeah.
But when these do develop, Bill, you're right. You can go from person to person in the hallway. But did that create another problem too? I think it could create a problem where if you have a collapse and you have that many people in there, and it's just human nature, everybody starts running. Are we going to be trampling the smaller guys? You know, if I got Logan in front of me, our little Logan, he's getting stepped right on, because, you know, he weighs about 80 pounds, and here comes some 300-pound guy down the hallway just mowing people over because I went out. You know, so that could create a whole nother animal there. And I hope that, my hope is in some of the reason for doing this is, you know, you're a little further out there than some of us, but you probably have the same issues with some of your neighboring departments, whether they're issues or not, that we just don't want to talk to each other, because, and again, it's our kingdom.
Yeah.
So we don't want to sit here at the table with this guy from over here and over here and say, hey, what are we going to do? And like I said, whether we like each other or not, or have opinions about each other, we have to do this stuff. It's only going to make us better. You know,
Right.
we can open communication between, you know, this guy over on this side and say, hey, this is how we want to do things. And I'm talking with my other officers, fairly sure that, you know, how we did that up there was the way we want to do that here. Is I don't want 30 people just going in and out. And I know Jared had assigned, it was as a matter of fact, it was Youngwood, Pee Wee, and them guys had gone downstairs. He said, go to the basement and throw the main breaker. Just get the electric kind of, until the power company gets there and we got the gas meter and all that. But he knew that Youngwood had sent 2 or 3 guys into the basement. We had our crew in Southwest and I believe there was a Greensburg or 2 guy there on the 2nd floor. And that should have been it. At that point, no one else should have been in there. And if something happened, he knew where everybody was to come and get them if you had to. But sometimes, and we get people on every floor in a burning house, fires on the 2nd floor, where there's 5, 6 guys up there dealing with that. There's 3, 4 guys on the 1st floor. Guys, wherever, finding their way into that house just to get in there and do something. And that's the nature of it too, and it's human nature. But and it might upset people when you hold them at the door. Whether it's me or something. Why is he going out to me? Does he have some kind of personal vendetta against me or whatever? But we have to let that stuff aside and do better and keep an accountability of our people. And I don't know the answer to accountability. We use the tags for years. We have them. Do I ever take them off my bunker coat any? Nope. They don't come off there. They just hang there. They have my name on them. They look real cute on there. But we don't take them off.
And I feel even if we do take them off, I mean, I've been to fires where we're taking them off, but I can guarantee you that person was not there taking tags right off the bat.
Right.
And that's where we lose track of things, and that's when things are going to go bad.
I mean, I remember when I guess it was when the tag thing first started in Greensburg, when we were in Greensburg. Engine 6 had a rail at the driver's door. You hung them on that rail. Now, who's coming around to collect those? Right? We had an idea.
Right, and we do that too. We do the 2 tag, where you leave one at the truck, and the chauffeur is sort of responsible for if things go south.
He can answer the question
and say that these are the people that I have in my truck. And then the 2nd tag is for entry. And again, it's something that we need to do right off the bat. And we're too set on getting in there and hit. And that's been the way we've done things for years. And I'm not saying wrong or right. That's just what happens. And you got to be able to take control of this thing quickly. We got a lot of people that don't want to be in those buildings.
Mm-hmm.
They want to come and they want to do their thing, and they don't want to be in there. So those are the ones we need to have trained that as soon as you get there, you grab that clipboard and you go to that door.
That'd be a good job for the mayor.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Really. Right.
I
was sort of thinking you,
but but yeah, we don't. Randy, did you want to say something? You look like you're ready to itch out of that chair back here. Go ahead, talk.
It's the engine company boss that holds the accountability. If you're a commanding officer, you have engine 32 operating, truck 24 operating, you have whatever engine 79.8 operating. I'm calling engine 79.8 boss, do you have par? And they should be holding the accountability. Those tags, they were a good concept, but we all know they don't work, right?
But if you have the tag at use your pump panel, for example. Your engineer is by that pump panel sometimes, but anymore sometimes not. Because you have engineers setting ladders to windows, dragging a line to the front door, getting tolls to the door. Because frankly, you might only have 3 people on the engine.
Until you come out, you're beat after your first cylinder. You're going to remember to grab your tag, saying I'm not inside anymore.
Right.
Again, I think it falls back on everybody. We all have officers in the department, and people forget there's a difference between an apparatus boss and a chief officer. Your apparatus boss is in charge of that apparatus and the people on it. You keep your accountability small. It goes back to your span of control. You have 3 or 4 guys on your engine. You have a chief officer in charge of those engines.
So if you're saying engine boss, the officer would be the engine boss.
Yeah, absolutely. Your company officer.
But so you got a lieutenant in the front seat, in the officer seat. Now, and it depends on what's going on or whatever, but he's going into the fire.
He's a working officer,
So
but he holds everybody.
he knows who he had with him is what you're getting at.
Exactly. And as a chief officer, you should know, I got 23 in there, I got 24 in there, I got.
Right. Okay. So you're saying, I come in with Bill and Zach are on a truck with me and I jump off and, at that point when something goes south, hey, this is who I have with me.
Right. Or just call for par. Hey, truck 24, do you have par?
Right.
Hey, truck 24, I got par. And as a chief engineer or chief officer outside, I'm taking
The pieces.
The pieces and not just because once you start doing personal accountability, you outgrow your span of control super fast, especially in large incidents, right?
I can agree with that, sure.
And that's the problem too, is you want to be big picture, but you're trying to do small picture things.
Right. Because I'm here looking at something and I guess we're not talking about a one room fire, but something is a bigger fire or a hazmat incident or whatever it is. I'm here at this place. And then he said stuff to me about it. I go walking around and walking the doors. Aren't you supposed to be outside? Yeah, I am. But, I want to see what's going on. But I'm in a place and then, right. So then I have, 24 has par, 104, whoever. And then it's their problem at that point. When they answered the question, yes, we have par, that they know they have all their people that they went there with.
Absolutely. We shouldn't just be making it falls back on the company officer again. Like you can't just be making company officers because this guy responds and he's a 19-year-old kid doesn't really know. He doesn't have that carousel to go around to say, this is the problem, here's my solution, right? And where you, as a chief officer, we should be training the under officers and even the people that might be filling into those positions what
He's talking to me. Correct.
what is expected and what needs done. And honestly, even in a big incident, even if say we take if we actually went full interior that fire up in Midway, right? Whoever was in charge of that situation, right, the chief officer in charge of that situation should know I have 32s up front. They're operating a crew, and you have the engine boss. So there you would have been the engine boss.
And at that point, even though I didn't come on the engine, I'm in charge.
Absolutely.
My guy.
You're the engine boss. Yeah.
And when I said, Randy, get out of there, start doing that. And then
right. I get mad that you're pulling me out, right?
But I'm looking for my people.
It's even the exact situation up over the barn fire we just had. There's another perfect example too, right? We had maybe 3 or 4 guys interior for South Greensburg. We had 2 Greensburg guys with us, I think, and a Youngwood guy, right? And I think even the Youngwood guy was an officer.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? He's operating under your control now, and you're reporting back to the
command officer.
To the command officer. Because now, if we didn't, we had 7 guys reporting back to the command officer.
Right, and that's where the radio starts to get tied up for messages that we really should have to get out. The radio becomes a whole thing.
And the only reason a firefighter should be using the radio is to declare they got a victim, declare they got a Mayday, and that's about it.
Fire knockdown.
Or no, I'm coming back to my engine boss. Hey, I think we got this checked. It was low budget. We thought it was medium budget.
Right.
Well,
he likes the word low budget. He wants me to use it one day.
So I'm just saying, for accountability, I think it's a situation that people overcomplicate unnecessarily when we could just resort back to one of the few things I actually like from NIMS is the span of control. And the fact that I know that I have X, Y, and Z and they're operating, and I can call X, Y, and Z's bosses and say, hey, do I have accountability? Whether you have 2, 3, 5, 10 people in there, depending on the size of the operation.
It becomes too much for one commanding officer to control everybody at a fire site.
Right. And what's the span of control? You're talking, 3 to 7, with your 5 being your optimal. So once you start pushing that five apparatus inside doing work, right? That's when you start thinking about making an operations officer or a staging officer, right? And then you start reducing your span of control that way. You have 5 different engines operating inside a dwelling fire. That's a big freaking fire,
Mm-hmm.
The perfect example would probably have been when Hutchinson and Gunner burned down. I bet you there was more than 5 companies operating firefighting attacks. I wasn't there for that one, but I'm just saying, even if there was, they were probably expanding their span of control. At least they should have been. And hindsight's always 2020. We come back and we beat the crap out of ourselves for we should have done this, we should have done this, we should have done this, and that's how you build your carousel.
But I think, and going along with that, I think better that we, instead of us always just talking about it here in our station, and it don't matter what you say in the group or not, someone's going to say he's a little crazy, or you know, Bill's losing it, or you know, he's getting up there a little bit, but. You know, someone's always going to say something. So what? You got to brush that stuff off and move on. But being at the table with our neighbors is, and before I never really thought about this stuff. Now I think about this all the time. It's very important, you know, that, you know, we get, you know, and we do it, you know, us in Southwest and whatever, but, you know, we also have Greensburg and Carbon that's around us, Midway, Hempfield too, all of them. We got to get them. We got to sit at the same table sometimes and discuss how we're going to handle these things when they come up. And frankly, you know, I get it. We don't want to do it on a stove fire or a small, but there's fires that are a little bit larger in nature that we could sit and go after action review and say, hey, you know, what happened here, without having to go, you know, call names to each other and put somebody down and just say, hey, maybe next time we should do this, without somebody getting offended on the other end, and just work together.
That gets back to egos too. I mean, it is what it is. I've never once ever in my life come back from a fire and go, man, I freaking killed it. I did everything I did, but I did it right. I did it 100%. And there's nothing I could have changed, right?
Right, good.
And we need to do it on the stove fire.
Absolutely.
Just the size of it is going to depend on how big of an after action.
Okay.
I mean, the stove fire, you come back and you sit in the front bumper and you talk about it. And we do it without even realizing we do it.
We do that.
And then as the incident gets bigger, then you may have to have a more formal meeting.
I think we do that in house for sure, mostly almost after any type of incident.
We need to start expanding is what you're saying.
I'm getting on the bigger,
Right.
What he's saying is the bigger the incident, the more people we need involved and who was involved in it. Because hopefully on a stove fire, one engine crew took care of that, or truck crew, or whatever it is. But
And a couple of things you
have to
said.
say truck too, but
A couple of things you said, Randy. I think it's much easier, and I hate comparing paid to volunteer because we're all doing the same thing. But this is where volunteer is worse, because paid, you come in with a 4-man crew, that's your crew. So whenever they're checking on engine 85, that's their crew. When we come in, half our crew probably came in the truck, the other half migrated in somewhere, and they could have brought the squad and came and threw their tags in. I still think with the volunteers, if you don't have somebody at that door taking accountability and at least limiting what's going in, if something happens in there, instead of having 4 people in there, you're going to have 10 people in there.
I don't disagree with you. And we've been at fire, like, if you're going to sit here and tell me that you never John Wayne did a fire to quote backdraft there, John Wayne time, right? And you go and do your, we all do it, right? It's freelance. You don't want to, regardless if it's career or volunteer, this is our job. Right? And you got to look at it as a job. We don't necessarily get paid with dollars, but we still get paid, and it's just in a different way. And it's when you start doing those John Wayne things, like it's it becomes less about the job and more about the ego, right?
Yeah.
But we're all guilty of it.
Oh yeah.
And it all ties back to the Mayday. I'm sure you can get better quotes or percentages, but I know a majority of your Maydays happen within that first 5 minutes, right? And when you have the minimalist crew there, right? Especially if you had a fire Tuesday morning at 8:30 in the morning, how many people are you going to have there?
that's a tough time.
Right? It's a real tough time.
Yeah, we were talking about that when you were getting coffee and didn't bring us any.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, you have your minimal crew, right? Usually
Right.
you have your whole engine in there doing work.
Yep.
Well, your whole engine's in there doing work, and now what? And then you start talking about running these, you might have touched on it already, where you're running, it's you and somebody else, you and an engineer, right? And say that engineer is, like here, we have 2 engineers that run constantly. they're way past their prime for interior firefighting.
Man.
I'm saying for
One of them's your dad.
I'm saying for interior firefighting. But could you count if you got? And this is where it goes back to being a good person as a smart firefighter is not getting too deep and not getting overcommit yourself when you have minimal. But again, it roots back to there's the fire, me dumb grunt, me go get fire, right? And we all, I do it, you do it, we all do it, and that's where you find yourself overcommitted, and then you have no people to help you on the Mayday, right? And it's really good when it works out. Like you listen back to all these reports and you listen to the radio transmissions. How many of them get that Mayday right?
Right.
Probably 1 in 50, right?
Right.
They give a good Mayday. Here's my location, unit name. Here's my resources I have. This is the resource. No one's going to say that, right? And you try to get it out, and I'm sure you run into the same situation. And that's what you said is a really good. That's set in my mind. Well, I didn't know if I was thinking right. Right?
Yeah.
And you think, I revere you, and somebody knows what they're doing, right? So if that guy knows what he's doing, how am I? Like I think I know what I'm doing, but he's got way more in the bank than I do, and how am I supposed to get that right? And for your Mayday, for a perfect example, hey, I need help. Well, that's what we got to think about.
I know, they're not coming up.
We're talking
Go ahead,
about
here, now I see it
comments.
now, okay.
He does not run the computer.
I'm sorry.
I'm just accountability is always going to be one of those things where it's just a crappy situation. It can go real crappy real quick.
Right.
But as a command officer, you have to know, like, hey, let's put this in check. And sometimes that's hard too. You know what I mean? And but that's the one thing I love about men is the span of control. Making sure, as the commanding officer of the fire, that you're holding that span of control, so you have a good grasp of that fire. And
Man, he's a chatterbox over there.
yeah,
No,
I'm passionate.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's the feedback that makes it good.
All right, so we're going to look through these comments here because Bill Rudd, I must not have been paying attention to what I'm doing here. So we'll look. I got 2 pages to watch too. So let's look at these. So Sam,
Practice what we preach too. So.
and I agree there. No one said that we do it exactly right, or anybody up here at this table or in this room does it exactly right. And we're saying we all have to get better at it as a whole. But Sam Bray, I'll just say that I agree to what you're saying there, and I'm going to let that go because we could really upset a few people. So, you think Billy and you would get this Facebook straightened out between the Bill Wright, and one could be Billy and one could be Bill, or one could be William and one could be Bill, because it gets confusing at times. But I hope you're not commenting sitting next to me, so we'll go with that's Billy.
It's not he tells me he was on first, so he's not changing.
Oh, okay. So getting better at accountability is a goal of ours every year, and every year we don't get better at it. Right, Billy? And that's what I'm saying. We have to get out of our own way and sit and talk to each other. We really do. Shell's always got something to say.
Yeah, I missed out. He must be good.
The division supervisor is not a bad thing. Division supervisor, she 4 or 5 people. And I think that's what Randy was talking on, doing that with these, whether you call it sectoring or division or whatever you want to call it, and engine boss, however you want to do it, they report to the command officer is one thing. Anyone who doesn't want to listen, tell them to get back and go home. Yeah. Standard training. So it depends on what page you're on, Bill. Because
well, you touched on it before about me going around the back corner. I think too many times the incident commander tries to control the whole incident instead of letting another officer or fireman go to the seaside and just stay there. You can't control a large incident by yourself from the street. You need to break it down to other people. And it sort of touches a little bit on what Jay said with the division supervisor. Whoever's on charge, and somebody in charge of Division 2, somebody in charge of Division 1, somebody has Side C. They all report to the incident commander, but the instant command, that's an instant command class right there. But we don't do it. We don't practice what we preach.
So I'm going to go over to the other page, and Jimmy Bold, I'll assume I was dazing off into space is what you were referring to there and not paying attention. I was paying attention. That's how I listen. And then I actually got a text message, Phalo, what are you doing on this live stream? I must have been sitting here fiddling with my thumbs or something and listening, but Sean Teacher, the second due should be setting ladders, softening the building. I think we all have that in our mind and sometimes do it and sometimes don't. And that was one example up here. And Billy even made the comment to me. He's like, we actually did truck work here. Jared had them ladder the building, and we got the aerial to the roof, and then we got going there. So that worked out on that one, but it doesn't work out on everyone like that. The very next one we probably screwed up and didn't do it.
Happens a lot with us. We're first due with the truck, and we're doing engine company.
Yeah, and that's
And then we lack on the second,
And I don't want to
second truck.
get into any discussion on Facebook. Please don't badmouth me.
well, they're going to anyway.
But we have a quint. And the problem with the quint is if you're first in, you're very likely going to end up doing engine company work. So now you got to wait for support for the truck work, or just commit to the engine work and let another truck handle the truck work. It's tough when you have a quint.
So, and then Sean said about the Mayday, call early, don't worry about what other people think. I think that's important, sure. And that's what we should do. What else we get here? This thing. Oh, Maddie even chimed in on here, my daughter. So always have to have someone hate when good is being done. I'll assume I don't see that comment, whatever it is, but keep up with the good work is a great thing you're doing. I see somebody put Randall Caddich as my hero. That was Durso. And Sean mentioned that Randy stole the show. He needs a seat at the front. So we're only allowed to have so many people in here. We violate rules. So
Maybe
I see he was ready to jump out of his chair back here. That's why we brought him on. Someday we'll have him come up here.
Have a live audience.
And Jimmy, sit down with your first alarm companies. Of course, that's what we're talking about. We have to do that. And sometimes there's just some people out there that you can't. They just won't sit with you. They don't want to hear it, and that's a bad thing. And we have to get past that. We have to. And listen, I'm not saying we have to. That means me, Bill, and Zach and his company, and everybody in this room. We have to be willing to listen to our neighbor, and frankly, even people outside the area. Believe it or not, there are people out there that have more experience than everybody sitting at this table and in this room. And we have to get past that. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know. Something was going on there that Maddie chimed in on there, and I didn't see it. But I'm not sitting here, and we're not doing this saying that we do everything right, because we certainly don't. We like to think we do. And sure, I like to do that. And okay. Well, that just happens on a regular basis. Them comments like that. I mean, that's just the nature of the game, and that's one of the problems we have. But we do, and I could touch on a million other things. And I'm gonna let it go, but the idea of doing this is just to have an open forum between us. And whether this is sitting at the table on here or it's actually physically sitting at this table, we can do it and do it for other areas that see us and watch this. So that's the idea behind this. And I'll go, and if I have to say it every time or we have to make a disclaimer about it, the South Greensburg Fire Department is not the best fire department in the world or in this area. We make a ton of mistakes every time. I like to think within our department at this time, we sit and, try to fix these things. amongst ourselves. And I think we have to start branching out between our neighboring departments, whether they be large departments, small departments, or whatever. And I guess that's the whole point of doing this thing, is that we all have an open line of communication, especially with our neighbors. So we're going to get ready to wrap this thing up here. We went longer than I thought we were going to go. Zach, you have anything else to say about anything? Bill?
You know, and I bypassed this. We come up with a couple ideas from my Maday. And just one little thing that we talked about, all we needed, and the same with you, was a way out. These companies anymore have 2, 3, 4, 5 of these great battery tower lights that are powerful as hell. We started talking about throw one in the front door, throw one in the back door, put them at your exits so that when somebody's getting closer, they can see it. And I wanted to bring that up before because I think that's after action finding that we should try to practice is the way to prevent it. And marking the exits with the lights is one way to, because everybody's got them now. They're all over the place. So just a thought. There was some other things that came up too, but that was the one that.
Well, here's just 2 more that I'm looking at on the left here. Jimmy Pohl said we have 60 years experience at the table. Yeah, Bill. You didn't have the rest of us in there, I guess. My 2 and, however long Zach been in. But yeah, Bill got 60 years in at least. Bam, no department is the best. We all have the best moments and not so good moments. And that's absolutely right.
And what you're doing here, Chief, is good. And when I said it jokingly about having a live audience, Randy's feedback during this
Right.
was great. So, I mean, having people, you can only have 3 here, but having people out there.
We can switch people in and out. We're still learning at this. I mean, if you saw this is our studio. We got a light on the thing, and we had to get light because Jimmy Bold was complaining about the light. I got a laptop filming a thing, 2 iPads. It's just, maybe someday we'll get a whole studio, you know what I mean?
But every mistake we make, I hope we grow from it, and this is trying to grow from mistakes.
Right. All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for your input. We did a little better with the comments this time. I'm sure we missed some, and we do apologize, but I'm new at this, and this is a lot of stuff sitting around here. But we really appreciate you being here, and we will probably do this again, I'm thinking. So anybody, I've had a few people reach out to me to want to sit down here, and I'm not going to touch that, Jimmy. We had a few people sit down here, call me and reach out that they wanted to come on, and I will get to you, believe me. And I'm sure you all have great things to say, and we will see you next time. Thank you.